to all of our phenomenal viewers, listeners, and supporters. I am your host, Podcast Bree, and I am so excited to be here. If you are a new audience member, we are so grateful to have you. Welcome to another episode of Connected, where we discuss all things mental health, recovery, employment, and stories. Before we dive in, this episode is sponsored by Contra Costa Behavioral Services and John Muir. On our next 7 episodes, Connected will be focused on the BIPOC community, sharing personal anecdotes, facts, awareness from specialists around the Bay Area. Today's guest is from the National Alliance of Mental Illness, or NAMI, here in Contra Costa. Leo Lee specializes in the Transitional Age Youth program, advocating for individuals between the ages of 16 and 29 experiencing specific socio-cultural challenges. Leo arrived in America in 2018 seeking education, personal growth, and exploring a new culture, and since has made a world of difference. Here in the Bay Area, 27% of residents identify as Asian American or Pacific Islander. Of those 27%, many struggle with social pressures, isolation, and language barriers. Leo is here to share his experience with us. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm so excited to have Leo here. This is actually his first podcast episode, you guys. So I'm glad. I hope we can make this experience very welcoming for him. So just clap it up. If you're watching from behind, just clap it up for Leo in his first episode. We're making many milestones on this show. So Leo, how are you feeling today?
Actually, a little bit nervous since, like you mentioned, right, it's my first broadcast experiences and it's kind of my midterm week. So yeah, all over the feelings.
A lot of nerves. I'm nervous too, and I do this all the time, and I still get very nervous. My ears are ringing right now. It's a lot going on. And I remember being in school and having midterms and just those kind of pressures of things to just kind of worry about. But I think you got this.
Thank you.
You got this. No worries. So to just kind of dive right in, and actually the first question I do want to ask you is like, how are you taking care of yourself?
I think the answer, I could go on for like 2 hours without stopping. So like a variety of resources, whether my friends, my families, or, just having like a little bit of skills, like taking some diaries, writing something every day, just tell myself I'm worthy. Yeah, I'm loved with my family and friends. So a lot. Yeah.
I love that. I love that journaling has been the theme of this podcast lately. Another person has mentioned that. Go ahead and watch our suicide awareness episode where me and Savannah talk about journaling as well. But yes, I feel like that's a really good thing to do, and just like personal affirmations, saying, hey, I'm loved. Today's going to be a great day. Everything's going to, turn out fine. And it really just kind of changes your brain into a better mindset. That makes sense. So really quickly, one of my other questions is like, to start it off with, so we like to talk about like myths and different myths and different, like, what's another word I'm looking for? Realities. Yes, but stereotypes. What's the other word? See, I'm nervous. Stereotype. Can't think of words. So what's like a stereotype or a myth about Chinese people that you've experienced? And is there any truth to it? Because they kind of stem from the truth a little bit. But what's something that you've experienced?
I think for mental health wise, especially a lot of stereotypes in our cultural things, I would say, especially that we have a close word like to the Latinx people, which is like they call it psycho for some people who are suffering from mental health conditions. And in our own version, we call it 精神病. It's just the same thing, like call someone psycho or he just lost it, something like that. That's like so, stigmatizing people with their symptoms, or sometimes when they're having a bad time. They just show what they cannot control. So that's definitely one of the top stereotypes I'm feeling. Especially like this summer, I just came back home, like, for visiting my families, and still I got a lot of those, conversation with my family or with my, like, long relatives. They're like, hey, Leo, how's you been doing? Like, I know you have like experience with depression like a year ago. Like, are you good right now? Like, are you recovered? Are you a healthy person? I'm like, what do you mean by healthy?
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm on my path to recover. I'm living with this depression. I'm not, recover from it. So that's definitely one of the hardest stereotypes I've been suffering from my family wise.
That makes a lot of sense too, because that can be hard when you get certain things like that, especially from your loved ones. And it is cultural, so it's not the norm to talk about the things that you've experienced. Just doing my research on the topic, I have noticed that is the common theme of the culture and in a lot of Asian cultures, and just I feel like amongst the BIPOC community in general, where it's very taboo to kind of talk about I'm mentally not good, you know, and that's okay too. So to kind of switch it up a little bit, and you spoke on you get having those kind of feedbacks from your family. Have you influenced any of your family members to be more covert about their mental health, like, and advocating for any family members, like, hey, Leo, that's really cool what you're doing. Can I talk to you as well? Has that been a change?
I think for start, definitely my mom, since like she's moving with me here from 2018, and ever since I have those symptoms about depression, like I can't get up every single day, just like feeling low energy at all, no social studies, like those like any life symptoms, like stuff like that. And she's been there with me from the first time, from like the very single, yeah. So she's been there for me like since the beginning, since like every single accident I would say, or like since every little things I've like argued with her, and she's growing a lot, I would say. Yeah. From the very beginning, she could not understand at all. Like, why are you showing this? Like, we're all here for you. Why are you like doing things like that? Why are you feeling depressed? But your family's here. But as time goes on, like she learns that it happens. It's a very normal thing here. It's like 1 in 4 American like have some symptoms or like have been affected by mental health conditions each year. So this is very common and normal. See, so she starts to recognize that, oh, this has just happened, and now let's see what we can do. We can better help my son, as she would say. And so that would definitely be the very important characters in my life, since she's my mom, she's my mother, trying to be there, be supportive. But I also want to share that besides my family, besides my close friend, I think we sort of even impact some of the, like, someone I don't even know, like from 2 years ago. So there was a I would say like a video website, just like YouTube in China. We called it Bilibili, and there was one video, a teacher in China, who I've never met before, and he just posted a video about like, oh, I have a student, no, he's struggling in mental health conditions, he's trying to commit suicide, but I stopped him. Like, so it was like a video that about, I would say, 100K view in the Bilibili website. So it was a viral video. Everyone was talking about this. So naturally, like, I'm like, hey, I know some stuff about this. I work at NAMI, so let's see how I can help.
Yeah.
So I just comment down below, like, hey, we're from NAMI Contra Costa. We have like some, we're a nonprofit organization. Although we're in US, we're not in China. But I know some of the stuff I can talk to you personally. Like, so maybe let's start like a Instagram group or like a WeChat group as Chinese people use. So that's how we get started. And to this point, I would say roughly 80 people, including students, including teachers, including parents, that are in the same WeChat group. So we will share our, thoughts, individuals, opinions, perspective in that group every single day. And I think we even have a psychiatrist in that group. So he can offer some professional, opinions and sometimes treatment. But again, we're a non-clinical organization. So we do is about peer pressure, like about peer support. So yeah, I feel like every single time when they're sharing like their opinions, they're having like a conversation in the group. I'm like, yeah, I've done something. Although it's not huge, but I can see that people are being, influenced by us, by our, yeah.
I feel like that is very huge. Just one comment just created a whole community. So you never know. We've talked about this on other episodes as well. It's like you just never know who's watching and who can take away from something that you're putting out. And I mentioned before, like, I'll post stuff online and then people are like, I was thinking the same thing, or they'll repost it. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not tripping out here, and that's really, really influential. And it kind of revalidates you and your purpose and what you feel like you should be doing. It's just like, I just left a comment saying, hey, can anybody just come, and if you have any issues, we can talk about it. And then now you've generated this group of over 50 people, about 80 people with a professional. It's very inspiring. So it is a big deal. So I would give you some kudos to you. A little earlier, you talked about you know, your mom being the one that was able to, she's been changing and more understanding of what you're going through. Have you, she was the one that actually got you into NAMI, right? She was the one that recommended.
I think not necessarily. So like one of her friends is working at NAMI. So like, hey Leo, do you want to do some like volunteer work? Since at NAMI, all we're gonna do is like we can do nothing, literally nothing without volunteers. So they're like a crucial part of our organization. So my mom's like, hey, why don't you do some volunteering, see if we can help you a little bit. And at the same time, you're gonna build up like your personal skills, your resume, all of that. So I'm like, why not?
Yeah. And how has working with NAMI and being an advocate for your mental health?
I think definitely a lot, since a lot of time like I work in NAMI as a Transitional Age Youth coordinator, or as we call TAY. A big portion of my job is like trying to, you know, talk directly to those teenagers themselves. Like the age range is from 16 to 29. Since we're considering the BIPOC communities, especially African Americans, sometimes they're receiving like less education on this. So when they grow up, like when they're 25, 26, then they started to receiving the same education as like, for example, right, as our community maybe in 20s. So they need some like extended time. So that's why we extended to the age of 16 to 29. That's what we call a transitional age youth. And when I'm talking to them directly, I can feel like, oh, you're been doing the same thing that's like I've been doing maybe 3 years ago. So I know what might be happening, and I know from my perspective what might help, just from my own personal experiences. So every time I talk through them, it's like talking to me 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've been feeling like, oh, I
You have
might
lived
be
experience.
helpful. Yeah, that's what we call LE, live experience. And especially when we're doing some like the huge presentation at local high schools or middle schools. So for example, I believe it was this year's April, I think, we did like a huge presentation to the Pittsburgh High School to over, I think, 600 to 700 students there.
Oh, wow.
So I can feel like all the crowd are just sitting back where I'm talking my stories, talking my, you know, perspective. I feel like even if I only, you know, have a positive impact on one of them, I feel like worth it. That's my point. And every single time I wish, you know, if I can do this more and more oftenly, more people will like, you know, we can create a better mental health friendly environment. And for example, right, if another Leo comes to the country in 2025, he will not have the same problem as I did. So that's how I build up my own mental health, just telling me I make a difference. I'm trying to help people, and at the same time, they're helping me. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very inspiring. And you will. I'm just going to remind you guys, Leo is only 21 years old and he's already made such difference. So you don't know what life has in front of you. I'm 27 myself, and the things that I did when I was 21 was not close to what I do now. But by the time I was about 22, 23, it's just like little things just really built up to where I am in life right now and here and today. So you just don't know. And like you're actually off to a really, really good start. So you might be head of CEO of a corporation in 5 years that's with mental health, and that'll be awesome too.
I think I don't even care about the position, you know, like title, as long as like I'm providing like my perspective and my help to the people needed. And yeah, I relate to that a lot. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I'm like, you know, 18 or 17, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just, you know, just like hanging out there. Maybe I have some difficulty, some challenge. And so definitely like things start to build up little by little.
It's going to work out. It's going to work out. Or you might have your own facility like, you know, the clubhouse where you're the executive director and like you said, it's not about titles, but just providing those spaces. Like maybe somebody in the chat that you have going on suggests like, hey, we should have a physical space for this and maybe kind of build. You just never know. I'm very optimistic, you guys. So I'm always going to make suggestions about things, but you never know. So let's take it back to when you first got here in 2018. And 2019, 2020 was around the height of Stop Asian Hate. So what was your experience like arriving to America and in the height of, you know, Stop Asian Hate and the pandemic, all of that going on? How did that take effect on you?
I think when I first got here, it was like late 2018. There was a trade war between US and China. And definitely I can feel their sense of like racism But it was kind of weird. Like it was very different from like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Like there was street, like you can't be there. You have to, get out of the building. You cannot sit on the bus. It's like, it's not like that. It was sort of high under the surface. Like in the service, they're like, hey, you're good. Welcome to US. We are glad you're here. We can talk about different cultures, things. But when there's like some beliefs or when there's some, like some hiding things, it's more discreet. They might not want you. So a quick example of that, maybe it's like in the workplace, you see that especially in female, especially in the API or in the BIPOC communities, they seldomly have chance, to rise up, to get some like director case, or more oftenly, they would just like, hey, just keep doing, you're doing great. No one told you like this, but they will never get a promotion. So it's sort of like a hiding racism, not like a on the surface. So that's what I'm that's what I'm feeling by the like end of 2018 or like 2019. People treat you like really nice on surface, like, hey, welcome, yeah, we're glad you're here. We can talk about jokes, we can have fun. But for example, right in school, when the class is over, I seldomly like hang out with them. They don't really invite us, like really invite me. But in class, they're like, great, yeah, we're having fun, yeah. So that's sort of like one of the peer pressure I'm getting. Just like, as soon as the class ended, I have no friends. Let's go home and just relax and do nothing. So that's sort of what I'm feeling. But on the surface, just one more thing about submission. Hey, I think there are progress, especially like by the end of 2019. I feel like, I'm actually starting making friends. Like they're actually like start to change this whole scenarios and this whole situation just because of the movement. Like everyone's like, hey, we should stop racism, and there are like a lot of my friends that are trying to fighting for this, for social justice. So definitely,
I'll add my my own experience, because I have a different experience, and living in the Bay Area, like I said, it's made up of 27% of people that identify as Asian or Pacific Islander, and so I've always grown up around a lot of Filipinos primarily, and then once I got to DVC, it was a lot of Chinese students, a lot of Japanese students, and Leo and I talked about this earlier, where I had this false sense of they have a strong community, not knowing what they went through prior to getting here or getting to that community, or how long it took them to form such unity. So I've always just felt like, like they're good. And then there's always, and as ignorant as this can be, and this is what I read about a lot as well, it's always that pressure of like the model minority, and it's more so, it's just like, I just remember growing up, like the Filipino kids were like always super smart, especially the Chinese kids were like always super smart. And then it was just like, okay, like they're good, and you just never know what someone is really dealing with or what their actual lived experience is. So I'm glad that we're doing this episode as well. And I was able to do the research that I had to do so that I have a better understanding. And then just hearing your own experience, I have a better understanding, because it's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of just kind of stereotypes of why you guys might feel like you need to be this model minority, even if you're not, because it's just a lot of extra pressure. And like you said, you will be at work and then you'll be thriving, but then it's a hidden resentment from the people that you are around, because it's just like, we'll never give you the promotion. Great job. But, you're never going to be qualified for X, Y, and Z. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. And you touched on that. So I just want to change gears a little bit. And we've talked about, like, before on the phone not too long ago, we talked about like peer pressure and different peer pressures and how you manage it. And so when I say peer pressure, it's not just like the peer pressure of the world, it's like your actual peers. So what have you actually experienced when you first got here, or maybe even now, that you're kind of struggling with amongst your own peers of the pressure?
I think definitely the first layer was like, I was just talking about friendship, like whether like do I need a lot of friends to be, to be good, or do I don't? So there's like a trick question. So when I first got here, there was almost no friend outside of classroom. So there was no like any, after class activities. So I was like worried about myself. Hey, am I wrong or something? Am I doing wrong? Am I, doing very, very bad because I can't make any friends? Those people just don't like me. So I think that's like definitely one type of the peer pressure I I feel the most. And then the next layer will be, I think actually just like on study wise, like you see, as a Chinese immigrant, like people expect me to be smart, expect me to be like really at the top of my class. But however, in reality, like neither one of us is smart, right? This is just some normal distribution stuff. So I think every single time when I'm trying to study hard, trying to to prove to my parents, to prove to my family, like I'm good. But at the same time, I have to prove for my class, to my classmate, to make them feel like, oh, Leo's really smart. Maybe I'll be friends with him. Maybe like I will ask him some questions, so they will talk to me. So that level was like kind of, I have to be top of my class. I have to be success at everything. So that's definitely another layer. And the third layer actually I think would be about the whole community feelings, since as a Chinese student or like as a Chinese immigrant here, you sort of have to be fit in but not fit in. So it's kind of tricky. So what I mean by fit in is like you have to fit into the cultural, you have to learn so many cultural difference here. You have to learn to be friends with like other races people. You have to be friends with your teachers, your professors. But at the same time, you have to you have to remember where you came from. You have to know like where's my own culture, where's my own roots. So that cultural, I would say, sort of a conflict really struggle me a lot. So there are friends like I've talked to some ABC that we call like American born Chinese, and they have like a totally different like cultural perspective than us. And when I talk to like other Chinese immigrant, I begin to question myself like, hey, who I really am, who I am in this like in this age. Like at that time there was like pandemic, all things are going on. So I feel like just finding who I am and where I belong is really another layer of peer pressure. And the reason I'm saying that is because all those peers around me, they're reminding me, hey, what should I be? What should I choose? What should I choose to become? So that should be, I think, something about peer pressure.
How have you been able to find your community?
That's a really great question, I would say.
Yeah, because you would think like we have such a huge population. I've never felt like any of you felt isolation because I just always assumed that like, the Asians stick together, the Filipinos stick together, you guys help each other out. And that's just my personal experience. Not saying that it's true, but that's just the projection that I've always had. So how have you been able to actually find that community?
That's actually a really, I would say, a great question, first of all. Because in our opinion, I think, or at least like into my own opinion, I don't think we have a very, strong communities here in US. In our perspective, I think often the African Americans have a very strong communities, whether like in stand out, like in trying to, do some movement, they're very strong. They're very united. They got each other's back. That's to me, my own personal opinions.
That's funny.
Yeah. So like, I think, either way. So I think like here, like especially our immigrants, like outside of our own country, we tend to bond together, trying to support each other. That's definitely true. So I think that's how I found my communities. It's just through NAMI, I think. First of all, we have like our AAPI department, our branch. So when I first volunteered there, I began to see a lot of, we can communicate in our own language. We can talk things in our own cultural things. So we quickly, became friends, and sometimes even, even like they're my stepdad or mom, like for my mom's friend. So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's where like I belong here. This is not something I know nothing about. This is not like a neighborhood that I'll get scared. But I know I got my friends, I got my support person right here. So that's definitely the first part of it. And the second part is, once you have those friends, you begin to do some outreach so that more people know about this. So the more the people we are trying to seek. For example, right, we will have a NAMI on DVC. So that's me and Edward. So he's the president of NAMI on DVC. What we're doing. So we're actually like share our resources. So we can have more Chinese immigrant or the API immigrant, whether like they're coming from Japan, Korea, Filipino, like all over the place. They can all like sort of see a community here, the support for them. So I think that's how we grow this hosting, and all of us can find our own communities here.
That's awesome. Yeah. I can actually relate with that as well. I feel like with Black people, we're starting to see the need. Like we've always had movements and been the start of a lot of different things. But now especially we're starting to do things where it's secluded just for us because we need those safe spaces for us to be us. And so like I try to participate in like Black hiking groups because you don't see us outside, you know, hiking or doing certain things a lot. I tried to participate in, like, they do game days. There's one particular organization I'm talking about. It's a nonprofit out of Richmond and Oakland, but they touch everybody in the Bay Area. They do like food drives and game days, and it's just like a place where we could let loose, be a kid again, you know, just get the help and the resources that we need. They do things for mental health as well, and it's really cool because a lot of history has shown every time we do try to get together, they do something to tear us apart. And our history is just so violent and just always trying to break the Black family and Black love away, up. And then now that we're in this different space where it's like, hey, you know, we actually like need each other, like we are better together than we are apart. It's always this cycle, because sometimes I feel like we're very divided, but then when I actually go outside and live experiences instead of listening to what they're saying online, I feel like we really do come together when we need to. So and it's been cool finding that community. Last question, do you have any tips for someone who is struggling with pressure?
I think the most important thing I'm gonna say is you're not alone. That's like sort of our slogan for NAMI Contra Costa, is that you know that all of us experience those pressures somehow each day, and you're definitely not alone. Well, whether you're severe, like trying to feeling of isolations or depressions, or whether it's like you're just having a bad day, you're not alone, and resources are like within reach. I believe like that is one of my, I would say, typical saying when I'm doing those presentations to local high school students. I would say that help is within reach. Just, you might not notice this, but help is all around yourself. Like maybe as a student, you can talk to your teachers. Maybe as a parent, you can talk to like local organizations, supportive, like nonprofit like us, like Connection House, like NAMI Contra Costa. And we're here. We're providing the help. You might need it, or you might not. But either way, we're here.
Or you might know somebody that needs help.
Yeah.
But there's resources out there.
Definitely.
Leo, is there any lasting things you want to tell us? You want to let the people know how they can reach out to you, how they can get the help that they need? Any lasting things that you want our listeners or our viewers to know about?
I think definitely. I think first of all, as a Transitional Age Youth coordinator at NAMI Contra Costa, I just want to share, like, first of all, like the most important things, which is the number 988. I'm sure a majority of you have heard it already.
Yes. But
again, I'm going to emphasize this. This is very, very important. So when you have like a mental health sort of emergencies, instead of 911, you can also dial 988. So it is more like a mental health friendly, mental health professionally hotline you can dial on. So definitely search it up. You're going to cover more details than I'm sharing right here. So first of all, 988. And second of all, go check like our NAMI Contra Costa AAPI warm line. So this is like more, I would say, a cultural friendly, like a cultural appropriate resource you can use, especially your API communities, since we provide support in different language. We have Mandarin, we have Cantonese, we have Tagalog, we have English as well. So if you're trying to speaking to someone who knows about you, especially your API community members, if you're thinking that talking things you don't want to talk about with your family in your own language, so definitely come to us, search it up. Yeah.
Right on. Well, Leo, it has been a great pleasure to have you on the show. Congratulations on completing your first podcast episode. And this has been another episode of Connected. And go ahead and check out our last episode and stay tuned for more. Take care, you guys. Bye.